A ruthless prosecutor dies and respawns in hell, still acting like he's got main character immunity. Snatched up by the smooth-talking demon Bune for a brutal kill-or-be-killed tournament, he's out here giving courtroom speeches while speedrunning demons like it's a true crime edit. New realm, same oversized ego. Bro really pulled up to hell thinking he can cross-examine the apocalypse. A dark, tall tower with a coiled dragon stands against a glowing red sky. A demon sits on a throne of corpses and holds a ring. He explains that the curse of eternal life prevents their power from uniting. The 72 Pillars of Solomon will now choose human beings as their proxies. They must fight to steal power and end the war that has raged for ages. A dark sphere appears in the sky as they proclaim the new millennial festival. A long-haired man in white clothes walks over the vast piles of dead bodies. The demon of eloquence, Bune, spots him and asks if he is joining the festival. Bune refuses to participate, stating he has absolutely no interest in this war. The man asks why, but Bune ignores the question and mentions his desired ring. Bune then shows his hands, revealing a view of a building filled with people. A crowd of reporters gathers outside, taking pictures and holding their microphones. They ask Prosecutor Hanjo about the arrest warrant issued for Chairman Ishiwata. Angry protesters gather nearby, claiming the chairman is a pillar of the economy. They shout that Hanjo is conducting a heavy-handed investigation against the chairman. In contrast, other citizens protest, demanding that Hanjo give criminals the harshest penalties. Hanjo steps forward, his eyes glowing blue, and declares he will do his duty. He then looks at his phone and reads a news alert about the chairman. The news states that Chairman Ishiwata has died in an apparent case of suicide. A man in the crowd looks at the news on his phone in complete shock. Meanwhile, Hanjo walks inside a dark building, ignoring the chaos of the outside reporters. Hanjo states that the reporters only want to use him to clean things up. He smiles with a sinister look in his eyes and tells the dead chairman to run. Elsewhere, Bune watches Hanjo and expresses his excitement over the man's wild madness. The man tells Solomon that he is now very interested in participating in the festival. Bune touches a mirror and says the prosecutor who forges evidence is truly irresistible. He decides to pick up the prosecutor and says he will dress to kill. With a sinister smile, Bune asks if they should go after the ring of Solomon. Our story kicks out with a heavy collision of two vehicles leading to a heavy accident. The victim inside is clearly identified as the famous prosecutor Isaku Hanjo. He lies completely motionless, heavily covered in deep red blood inside the severely wrecked vehicle. Hanjo was widely known for his relentless pursuit of dangerous criminals, especially in severe sex crime cases. Deep sorrow quickly spreads across the entire city on the extremely tragic day of his beloved daughter's birthday. The injured perpetrator mutters the exact same strange phrase, claiming he buried the devil to build a new world. On the other side, a prosecutor, Isaku Hanjo, stands perfectly still, staring blankly up at a gigantic tower wrapped tightly in a coiled dragon. Elsewhere, a terrifying giant red demon ruthlessly grabs a screaming civilian woman by her hair against a fiery backdrop. She desperately begs the towering demon to stop and loudly screams that it is far too hot in there. Nearby, a severely burned man, bleeding heavily and in immense pain, screams loudly as flying monsters completely surround him. He clutches his ruined face, screaming about his damaged eyes and wondering how far the scary beast will chase him. Back at the dark tower, Hanjo stares in absolute disbelief at the incredibly strange and completely terrifying environment. He confidently states that no matter how he looks at the ruined surroundings, this place is undoubtedly hell itself. Hanjo rapidly wonders aloud how this situation is even physically possible and loudly questions why he is standing there. Firmly remembering how he lived his entire life the right way, he angrily questions why a man of his righteous standing must fall into such a dark place. He angrily remembers that he has personally sent hundreds of dangerous criminals directly to prison during his long legal career. Hanjo soon finds himself lying entirely on the ground as a massive dark figure slowly approaches him with clear menace. Hanjo boldly stares directly into the massive monster's glowing eyes, quickly realizing that he has undoubtedly encountered a real devil. The towering devil heavily notices. He loudly declares that he smells the distinct scent of justice, a rare scent he has not smelled in ages. Hanjo quickly retorts that he is absolutely not the kind of ordinary pathetic scum that belongs in the depths of hell. He proudly states that he was a highly righteous prosecutor. The massive devil quickly replies by asking if Hanjo is a mortal who truly understands the deep concept of justice. The devil formally reveals his true name as Andromalius, the Earl of Justice, and one of the 72 demonic pillars. Hanjo quickly thinks that if he strategically plays his cards right, he might extract highly valuable information out of him. Andromalius suddenly changes his friendly tone entirely and angrily states that absolutely nothing is more loathsome than false justice. He aggressively explains that it is utterly loathsome to proudly brandish justice without having the actual right to define evil. The giant demon loudly threatens to completely crush the prosecutor to tiny pieces for being a wicked devil's advocate. Just then, another highly powerful demon named Bune smoothly appears and asks if Andromalius is trying to snatch his human. Bune angrily questions whether Andromalius is deliberately planning to steal the human he went through great physical trouble to fetch. Bune then casually poses a deep philosophical question about whether a devil who aggressively punishes a sinner is good or evil. Bune smoothly lands right near Hanjo, strictly pointing out that violently killing an advocate before the contract is signed is forbidden. Andromalius angrily snarls back, loudly stating that he almost had to meet the human prosecutor he worked hard to fetch as a corpse. Bune politely turns and completely introduces himself to Hanjo, smoothly apologizing that he forgot to introduce himself much earlier today. He formally reveals his true identity as Bune, the elegant devil of eloquence and one of the 72 pillars of Solomon. Bune casually asks if Hanjo currently has a massive mountain of urgent questions about the highly bizarre events happening around him. Andromalius furiously yells at his human servant Zhukova to quickly kill the advocate before he can sign a contract with Bune. A massive, violently destructive explosion immediately occurs as the other devil brutally attacks Hanjo with immense power and incredible speed. Andromalius angrily watches the chaotic fight, loudly complaining that the absolute worst devil had to join the current millennial festival. Hanjo silently hides in the dark shadows, fiercely vowing that he will definitely pay Bune back for the earlier physical humiliation. Bune smoothly returns to their private conversation and confidently reveals he knows absolutely everything about Isaku Hanjo's extremely personal past. He clearly mentions that during Hanjo's early student days, his closest childhood friend was brutally murdered after being violently assaulted. Bune accurately reveals that the real human culprit was never caught by the police, causing the tragic case to go completely cold. Bune continues explaining that Hanjo showed absolutely no mercy to terrible sex offenders, completely burying them with the full force of the law. Aggressively demanding to know if Bune was the one who dragged him into hell, he angrily asks why the devil brutally involved his innocent wife and young daughter in this completely terrible and highly dangerous situation as well. Bune mockingly touches Hanjo's chin with a sharp claw, sarcastically asking if he actually plans to become a devil-hunting prosecutor next. Bune suddenly releases a massive, dark purple aura, forcefully pushing Hanjo completely back with immense magical pressure and overwhelming power. He sternly warns the human that the devil of eloquence absolutely hates being rudely interrupted while he is actively and formally speaking. Bune strictly states that Hanjo was undeniably destined to die from the very start and was simply brought here as a devil's proxy. Hanjo furiously glares back, angrily asking if Bune expects him to fight alongside him exactly like the old woman fighting for the other devil. Bune casually replies that signing the contract is the absolutely perfect chance for the human prosecutor to start his mortal life completely over. He confidently promises that if Hanjo officially signs a contract with Lord Bune, both Hanjo and his dead family can be fully resurrected. Hanjo is visibly surprised by this massive, life-changing revelation and quickly asks the devil if those specific, promising words are actually true. Bune smirks confidently, loudly stating Hanjo can either freely join forces with him or quickly become dead prey for the other hungry devils. He calmly explains the ancient history of Solomon from the Holy Bible, directly calling him a crazy bastard who suggested cutting a human baby. He notes that the highly famous man possessed a completely precious ring imbued with absolute and totally unmatched world-bending power. Bune completely reveals that the incredibly precious ring was eventually shattered into many pieces, leaving the 72 devils with exactly one fragment each. He fully explains this directly triggered a violent, completely endless struggle for the ring, but since everyone is fully immortal, no one would ever die. Bune states the rules are incredibly simple. The human advocates violently fight each other, and the ultimate human winner gets the ring fragment. He promises that if Hanjo finally gets the completed ring, he can easily bring his beloved family back to life from the actual dead. After this, Hanjo looks down quietly, quickly realizing he simply doesn't have the legal right to refuse, but strictly asks why the devil specifically chose him. Byun chuckles softly, happily claiming it is for a trivial reason. The ancient man named Solomon simply took a random, completely unexplainable liking to him. Hanjo thinks carefully, deeply suspecting there must be a much clearer, hidden reason why this specific, highly powerful devil directly chose him. He resolves that to secretly find out that completely hidden reason, he has absolutely no other choice but to properly become a devil's advocate. Byun fully explains that Hanjo will now instantly gain a brand new magical ability heavily based on his previous, highly eventful human life. Hanjo screams extremely loudly as immense purple power violently surges through his entire human body, fully awakening his completely brand new demonic powers. Byun excitedly watches the physical transformation, stating the new ability is entirely based on what Hanjo considered the absolute most efficient killing tool. As the thick purple smoke finally clears, Byun looks completely surprised by the incredibly strange physical weapon that has just successfully manifested. Meanwhile, Andromalius furiously orders his highly experienced old woman advocate, Zhukova, to immediately kill the wicked devil's advocate completely without any mercy. Formally welcoming Isaku Hanjo to the highly violent Millennial Festival as an official participant. He strictly tells the human prosecutor to violently fight exactly like his life heavily depends on it if he truly wants his final wish to come true. Hanjo's entire right hand completely transforms into a massive, heavily armored demonic claw as he confidently stares down his rapidly approaching enemy. Hanjo quickly counterattacks with truly immense physical force, openly noting that he is now a dark devil's advocate, violently fighting for a literal devil. He coldly states that for someone who properly lived as a human prosecutor, this entire violent situation is a terrible joke that isn't funny at all. Despite being brutally and deeply slashed, Zhukova creeps completely forward and smiles crazily, promising she will happily fix him up right away. Hanjo successfully blocks another highly heavy attack, but is forcefully pushed completely back as a massive, highly dangerous ball of sharp needles rapidly expands. He heavily thinks that if this incredibly violent, terrifying path is the actual dark fate officially ordained by the ultimate god above. Meanwhile, in a highly cold, snow-covered city, two large stray dogs viciously tear apart bloody meat. Two men in formal suits stand nearby, deeply disturbed by the terrifying sight on the white ground. One man loudly questions why stray dogs are entering the city when there is hardly any food. The other explains that stray dogs were recently found aggressively tearing apart and eating a human arm. They express intense fear that an unknown culprit is brutally cutting people up for dog food. Moments later, an attacker violently slashes a bald man, leaving a massive trail of bright red blood. The heavily wounded man falls backward and desperately begs for his life on the freezing snow. He frantically claims the attacker is not in her right mind and desperately offers to help her. The attacker is fully revealed as the notorious serial killer Zhukova, holding a heavy axe and gun. She coldly states her grandchild is suffering, and she desperately needs a human heart to cure them. The terrified bald man angrily calls her a senile monster who is completely alone without any family. He suddenly realizes she is the evil demon directly responsible for the recent gruesome city dismemberment cases. She aggressively raises her bloody axe, yelling that she bakes sweet cookies for her sleeping grandchild. She coldly tells the begging man to bear the intense pain just for a little bit. Right then, Isaku Hanjo suddenly appears, perfectly blocking the heavy axe with his massive red demonic arm. Hanjo forcefully firmly stating that it took immense effort to finally track her down. Zhukova looks closely around the dark red environment, quickly realizing they are trapped inside his mental world. She claims his sad, tragic backstory offers absolutely no justification for the terrible killings he has committed. Hanjo sternly tells the murder suspect to completely drop the cheap sob story because it makes him sick. Zhukova laughs maniacally, proudly claiming a worn-out priest is nothing compared to a nice young heart. She rapidly fires a massive barrage of heavy bullets from the large gun attachments on her back. Hanjo skillfully blocks the heavy gunfire with his demonic arm while she continuously launches sharp flying weapons. He confidently declares that her foul, disgusting stench is far worse than any ordinary criminal he knows. Surging with bright purple lightning, Hanjo violently swings his massive blade to execute the harsh death penalty. The massive red energy slash completely obliterates the old woman and instantly ends the violent mental battle. The scene transitions directly to a past memory where a young woman speaks with a teenage Hanjo. She mentions a local rumor about his romantic feelings, but insists she would rather stay good friends. She firmly explains she has no room in her busy life for romance and he isn't her type. Smiling warmly under the bright sunlight, she promises that once they are adults, he will finally understand. Soon after, a serious news broadcast announces the tragic, unsolved death of the missing honor student girl. At her highly solemn funeral, attendees quietly whisper about Hanjo skipping the ceremony. Later, a young Hanjo angrily confronts Chairman Ishiwata on the street, listing multiple unresolved disappearance and murder cases. The blonde chairman smiles widely, casually admitting his involvement while noting the absolute lack of solid evidence. Hanjo furiously grabs Ishiwata's expensive suit, aggressively calling him a demon and demanding to know the truth. Ishiwata flashes a highly sinister smile, telling the angry student that uncovering hidden criminals is a prosecutor's job. As heavy bodyguards pull the struggling boy away, Hanjo fiercely screams that he will make him atone. Suddenly, the scene shifts completely back to the fiery hell, where Bune loudly wakes the resting prosecutor. Bune highly praises Hanjo for doing splendidly while thrashing around inside the defeated Proxy's dark, terrifying purgatory. Hanjo firmly glares at the devil, boldly threatening to personally end Bune once this violent festival concludes. Bune finds the mortal's threat completely hilarious, suddenly slamming Hanjo into the rocky ground with immense force. The devil claims Hanjo's rotten core is exactly his taste, stating that five-fingered humans cannot kill immortals. Bune clearly explains that humans absolutely cannot kill superior six-fingered immortal demons due to God's absolute rule. He casually drops a glowing green light into Hanjo's hand, revealing it to be defeated Andromalius's soul. Bune happily explains that defeating a proxy grants the winner the dead demon's soul and unique magic abilities. To directly mock Hanjo, Bune magically summons several dancing corpses of the old woman, thoroughly disgusting the prosecutor. Hanjo activates the green soul, fully explaining it has the special ability to reveal hidden, precious treasures. He asks Bune to clarify exactly where the specific treasure that the devil truly treasures most is located. A bright green beam violently shoots directly downward, piercing deeply through the dark red clouds of hell. Hanjo carefully reads the magical aura, realizing Bune's most precious treasure is located inside Bale's massive stomach. Hanjo calmly absorbs the bright green magical energy directly into his hand after finding the exact location. He casually pulls out a pair of red sunglasses from his suit jacket and smoothly puts them on. With a highly confident smirk, Hanjo tells the towering devil that it is finally time to leave. He boldly declares they are going directly down to where Bune's most precious treasure is currently hidden. Walking across a dark red landscape, Bune reminds Hanjo that they are seeking the powerful ring. He describes the Ring of Solomon as a beautiful artifact containing absolutely immeasurable, ultimate magical power. Hanjo deduces that Demon King Bale must currently possess the ring, making him completely unbeatable today. Right then, Hanjo points out that the proxies do the actual fighting, warning about getting burned. He demands that the devil explain exactly why they should not go directly to the tower. Hanjo states he is merely humoring Bune's games and sternly demands more concrete, highly useful intelligence. Bune laughs and admits he was being stingy with details, promising to cooperate sincerely with him. He begins explaining that since ancient times, the heavenly angels and the demons fought for reality. Moments later, Bune reveals that 3,000 years ago, Solomon banished the 72 pillars to hell. A giant purple eye looks down as Bune explains that he stubbornly refused to give up. He continually tempted Solomon until the wise man threw his powerful ring down into the underworld. Bune sinisterly smiles, noting that his master plan went incredibly smoothly up until that exact point. He explains that Solomon went completely mad and uniquely shattered his own ring into 72 pieces. Later, Bune states that Bale ended up with the ring's band, subduing 40 demons as king. He claims Bale has 40 fragments, making it entirely impossible for Hanjo to stand against him. Hanjo interrupts, reasoning that Bale could just crush the remaining small fry instead of holding festivals. He deduces that demons are immortal, so raw power alone cannot easily clean up this mess. Hanjo concludes that Solomon suggested the Millennial Festival so mortals could fight and wear everyone down. Soon after, Bune bows and suggests taking on Paimon, the second strongest demon and ruler of Western Hell. He describes Paimon as a cringy king with a massive army who absolutely hates Bale's guts. Hanjo questions if Paimon is currently way out of his league, doubting the devil's risky plan. Byun assures the prosecutor he has a plan and literally stakes his immortal life on this recommendation. He confidently declares that they must strategically eliminate Paimon first before going after Demon King Baal. At that moment, Hanjo glares, accusing Byun of acting as Solomon's errand boy and ruining everything. He calls Byun a mouthy little demon, stating Baal wouldn't be king if he stayed quiet. Furious, Byun violently grabs Hanjo, screaming that an insolent mortal dares to speak to him disrespectfully. Hanjo confidently smirks, reminding the angry devil that he staked his life and they are tied. He smoothly pushes Byun's arm away, noting that immortal demons absolutely despise getting physically hurt too. The next moment, Hanjo firmly declares that from now on, he decides what they will do. Byun laughs loudly, agreeing to let Hanjo lead but warning he will share the ultimate responsibility. The devil sighs, complaining that the human prosecutor simply never shuts up about his logical deductions. Hanjo walks forward, silently wondering if their thoughts are deeply linked and suspecting Byun is hiding something. He stops walking and calmly announces that their hidden enemies have finally decided to show up. Right then, a massive group of lesser demons completely surrounds the two partners on the terrain. Byun states he expected this, calling it a violent gift from Baal for defying the king. He warns Hanjo that sweet-talking won't save him as a giant demon violently strikes the prosecutor. A flying demon swoops in, and Byun loudly reminds Hanjo that he cannot hit reset upon dying. Byun mocks him, saying a reckless charge will kill him fast, though he is already dead. Meanwhile, Hanjo swings his glowing red sword, promising to violently show Byun until he fully understands. Standing on top of a giant white demon bird, Benny Parker confidently states that she really likes the prosecutor. She smiles widely, telling that he looks like he would be incredibly fun to violently kill. Benny cheerfully introduces herself to Hanjo. Hanjo looks up at the woman, calmly noting that it feels exactly like seeing a real celebrity. He accurately recognizes her as one half of the infamous killer couple who heavily terrorized 1920s America. She confidently aims her antique revolver directly at the prosecutor with a highly sinister smile on her face. Hanjo heavily mocks her antique weapon, quickly asking what she plans to do with a 100-year-old gun. Benny angrily retorts that her weapon is a cutting-edge item that will be all the rage in the future. Hanjo correctly points out that the gun was actually invented long after she had already died. He smoothly calls her a granny, infuriating her as her face completely contorts into a deeply terrifying expression. She crazily asks her partner Claude how she should directly carve this annoying bastard up for him. Nearby, the horned demon Barbados watches the intense confrontation closely from the dark, cloudy red sky. Hanjo immediately recognizes the demon as Barbados, just as Benny violently leaps down from the giant white bird. She aggressively fires rapid energy blasts from her revolvers, forcing Hanjo to swiftly block the heavy incoming attacks. Watching from afar, Barbados asks Byun which reckless idiot was boldly heading straight for Baal's heavily guarded tower. He sternly tells the devil of eloquence that pulling such an absurd stunt is entirely reckless for him. Byun casually remarks that Barbados clearly has a highly troublesome problem child on his own hands. Benny furiously continues her rapid assault, firing a massive barrage of glowing bullets directly at the human prosecutor. Hanjo expertly dodges the incoming gunfire, confidently stating that he can easily see every single bullet's path. He firmly declares that her completely straightforward attack pattern is no different from the old woman Zhukova's technique. Suddenly, the flying bullets stop completely in midair and rapidly reverse their direct path straight toward him. Hanjo looks completely shocked as he barely manages to dodge the unexpectedly changing, highly dangerous magical projectiles. He swiftly closes the distance and violently grabs the smiling Benny directly by her small neck. Benny simply smirks as the front barrel of her weapon heavily extends and brightly glows directly against his chest. Suddenly, a massive green energy beam violently crashes between them, forcefully interrupting their highly deadly proxy battle. Benny falls backward as Barbados loudly demands that she immediately stop running away from the intense fight. Byun glares intensely, angrily asking Barbados what he thinks he is doing by directly interfering in a proxy battle. Barbados calmly replies that he merely gave his subordinate a little discipline and tells Byun not to complain. He confidently asserts that Byun's human proxy cannot possibly defeat his highly skilled shooter Benny anyway. Benny complains that men are too much work and quickly summons a massive flock of strange white demonic doves. The terrifying birds possess completely round mouths filled entirely with sharp teeth as they rapidly dive toward Hanjo. Hanjo looks highly annoyed as he quickly uses his glowing red sword to violently slash the incoming monsters. He effortlessly cuts the terrifying white birds into multiple bloody pieces as they continuously swarm his exact position. Benny suddenly swoops in directly behind him, prompting Hanjo to realize her magic bullets have a will of their own. Benny smiles, noting she almost took a direct hit to the face during his violent, bloody counterattack. Hanjo fiercely continues slashing the remaining monsters, getting completely covered in bright red blood from the brutal massacre. Barbados lands his giant bird nearby, proudly telling Bune that his hopeless Proxy actually won the fight. Bune completely ignores the boast, casually telling Barbados that the road is boring and asking for a story. Meanwhile, Benny angrily yells at Hanjo, claiming criminals like him completely lack any sense of refined class. She proudly declares that in the absolute end, terrible people exactly like him always end up on death row. Benny instantly looks completely terrified by his overwhelming dark aura and desperately calls out for Claude to help her. Bune smoothly asks Barbados how long he will keep posturing, directly urging him to just finish the fight already. Barbados quickly opens a glowing third eye directly on his forehead, firmly refusing to be Bale's obedient flunky. A massive blast of green energy violently strikes Barbados's giant flying beast, causing total chaos in the sky. Barbados swiftly swoops down and successfully catches the falling Benny completely in his arms mid-air. The giant demon bird furiously complains about Barbados recklessly firing a destructive beam right from the passenger seat. Barbados strictly warns Bune not to ever interfere again, vowing to personally kill Hanjo with his own hands. He smoothly flies away with Benny, leaving a heavy cluster of floating machine gun barrels as a parting gift. The floating weapons rapidly fire out multiple white bird monsters that violently charge straight toward the human prosecutor. Hanjo aggressively slashes the newly summoned monsters into bloody pieces with his massive glowing red sword. The massive beast firmly tells the filthy little mortal to try fighting with a little more care since he is underneath him. The giant white bird violently crashes down onto the dark red ground in complete defeat. Hanjo heavily breathes with his bloody sword, noting there is absolutely no time to rest. He looks directly up, complaining that nobody mentioned the violent welcome party had another round. The prosecutor firmly admits that Benny was a highly skilled and extremely dangerous opponent today. He reluctantly acknowledges that without Bune's direct help, the crazy shooter would have killed him. Hanjo closely stares at the Dark Tower, realizing they will face entirely different, stronger enemies. Hanjo loudly decides he urgently needs to get far away from the reverse Babel Tower. He firmly makes finding a safe place to physically rest his top priority right now. Looking back at the sleeping devil, he highly doubts Bune will let him rest quietly. Hanjo calmly notes that since demons cannot interfere in proxy fights, he can leave now. He strictly concludes there is absolutely no real need to keep tagging along with Bune. The young man smoothly walks away into the distance, wishing the irritating demons sweet dreams. Later, Hanjo aimlessly walks across the vast red desert, complaining the scenery never changes. He suddenly drops directly to his knees, realizing he took much more damage than expected. The exhausted prosecutor notes that wounds absolutely do not heal any faster down in hell. He heavily struggles to move forward, telling himself he simply cannot afford to stop now. Hanjo firmly remembers Bune's words, hoping there is still a way to save his family. Soon after, he unexpectedly wanders directly into a dark purple forest filled with gloomy trees. Hanjo looks around, stating he never imagined hell would actually have a forest like this. He highly hopes to finally find a quiet place to physically rest, as originally planned. Right then, Hanjo notices a massive trap web with a sharp scythe hanging directly above. Several creepy plague doctors suddenly emerge from the dark shadows, holding their sharp, deadly weapons. They aggressively surround the injured prosecutor, claiming he arrived just in time for raw materials. Hanjo instantly reacts, violently unleashing a massive red energy slash to quickly cut them down. Hanjo forcefully grabs a surviving doctor by the mask, firmly asking if he has medicine. The terrified doctor angrily replies that this is hell, and no healing medicine exists here. He loudly reveals only noble demons like Lord Phoenix possess the actual authority to heal. Hanjo brutally crushes the doctor's head, coldly telling the useless enemy to just shut up. Walking away, Hanjo worriedly admits he is completely finished if this violent situation keeps up. Moments later, Hanjo discovers large wooden cages completely stuffed with pale, screaming human bodies. The trapped souls desperately beg to escape, terrified of the dark forest's truly horrific nature. Hanjo calmly asks the trapped victims what makes this specific forest so incredibly terrifying. A pale body explains this is Phoenix's territory, where demons use human bodies as ingredients. The victim cries that demons continuously torture their undying bodies to forcefully extract healing materials. Hanjo smirks confidently, calling the existence of a healing demon the absolute best news yet. He quietly ventures much deeper into the dark woods, hoping his enemies will stop chasing. Hanjo desperately leans against a large tree, heavily admitting his physical body is completely exhausted. Suddenly, a group of grotesque, mutated monsters fully surrounds the severely injured human prosecutor. The monsters highly mock the resting newbie, violently threatening to keep his mouth shut forever. Right then, the old woman Zhukova suddenly appears and rapidly fires her heavy guns. She aggressively blasts the surrounding monsters, who frantically scream about her reckless, loud gunfire. Hanjo completely collapses to the ground, desperately asking to just rest for a little bit. Moments later, a massive group of heavily armed plague doctors quickly rushes his exact position. Hanjo stands firmly with his sword as they loudly thank the gunshot for revealing him. The menacing plague doctors angrily declare him a fool for making noise in Phoenix's territory. He heavily grips his massive red demonic blade, fully prepared for another violent, bloody confrontation. Hanjo coldly mocks the surrounding enemies, claiming these ignorant doctors clearly forgot the Hippocratic Oath. A doctor wonders how Hanjo is still alive after seemingly getting his head cleanly cut off. Hanjo confidently wipes the bright red blood off his massive blade, expecting this from immortal demons. Realizing he cannot find a simple way out, he loudly declares the doctors are completely finished. Suddenly, massive, half-dead zombies violently ambush the plague doctors from behind in a bloody, brutal attack. The shocked doctors scream at the miserable insects, angry that half-dead scum are attacking a demon. The muscular zombies violently tear the doctors apart, causing massive amounts of bright red blood everywhere. He sinisterly smiles, noting it completely makes sense why they desperately need the Millennial Festival. Suddenly, a massive white-spiked pillar violently crashes down, brutally crushing the zombies and doctors completely. A terrifying, gigantic creature, entirely made of pale corpses, slowly emerges directly from the dark woods. The terrified zombies scream for help as a surviving doctor desperately warns everyone to run away. The doctor loudly screams that once the massive monster fully swallows you, it is completely over. Hanjo swiftly dodges the crashing pillar and breathes heavily, accurately noting that was incredibly close. He quickly tells the screaming zombies to enjoy themselves as much as they possibly can. As Hanjo attempts to leave, a grotesque, mutated arm violently grabs his leg from the ground. The strange monster weakly asks where he thinks he is going, prompting Hanjo to immediately react. Hanjo brutally slices the gross monster's arm completely off with his massive glowing red sword. The terrifying giant bird monster forcefully consumes the screaming zombies directly into its massive dark stomach. The helpless victims cry out in immense pain as they are violently dragged into the void. Hanjo watches the horrifying scene, highly disgusted, and urgently decides he needs to hide very fast. He heavily worries about unfortunately running into another dangerous devil's proxy at a time like this. Suddenly, a massively muscular man aggressively drops from the sky holding a giant, heavy chess piece. He violently smashes the giant bird monster with one single blow, causing a massive, bloody explosion. Hanjo looks completely shocked, deeply surprised the new enemy took down that huge thing instantly. The muscular man smiles widely, happily declaring he finally found his 64th and final chess piece. He violently leaps directly toward the human prosecutor, tightly gripping the heavy, blood-stained chess pawn weapon. Hanjo heavily struggles to block the giant chess piece with his massive, glowing red blade. He angrily thinks of his terrible luck, cursing that he ran into a proxy right now. The muscular man claims he actively followed the nauseating, terrible stink of the eloquent demon Bune. A tall, masked demon points its finger, claiming they only found a separated, lost little kitten. Hanjo firmly replies there is no way Bune would let his proxy wander completely alone. Hanjo powerfully pushes the muscular man entirely back with a massive burst of bright red energy. The masked demon, Fornius, steps forward and calmly tells the man to save the sword show. The muscular man, named Pichushkin, angrily yells at Forneus to let him finish the human now. Hanjo quickly recognizes the strange demon's name as Forneus silently observes the completely exhausted human prosecutor. Forneus correctly deduces that Hanjo ran away, loudly noting that Bune truly is a riot today. The demon mocks Bune for treating his proxy terribly, causing the human to actually run away. Hanjo firmly calls out to the muscular proxy, correctly identifying him as the infamous killer Pichushkin. Pichushkin asks if it is finally time to fight, stating he just has to kill him. He lifts the heavy chess piece, completely determined to make the former prosecutor his final victim. He loudly declares he specifically wanted his final piece on the chessboard to be a prosecutor. Pichushkin violently strikes with immense physical force, furiously screaming about the people who threw him in prison. Hanjo heavily struggles to block the devastating blow, completely shocked that his demonic blade is cracking. Pichushkin maniacally screams for Hanjo to die, rapidly launching a massive barrage of incredibly heavy strikes. Hanjo is forcefully pushed backward, quickly realizing he absolutely cannot win at this extremely violent rate. Pichushkin aggressively vows to brutally crush the prosecutor to bits with his heavy chess piece. Hanjo forms a highly sinister smile under his hat, confidently realizing a specific, clever new approach. Forneus calls Pichushkin ignorant and savage, formally introducing itself as the noble Marquis of Rhetoric. Pichushkin furiously laughs at the final words, suddenly looking completely confused by the upcoming unexpected statement. Forneus states the exact opposite of ignorance is enlightenment, completely mocking the proxy's brainless, violent actions. Hanjo smoothly adjusts his glasses, firmly declaring that resorting to violence is a hopelessly foolish act. He calmly tells Pichushkin that the muscular killer knows absolutely nothing about true, efficient violence. Hanjo questions how the man kills, confidently revealing he has personally killed more than he can count. He smiles sinisterly, stating the day before he died, he sent another directly to their grave. A flashback clearly shows Hanjo standing entirely alone, calmly staring into a highly shattered, broken mirror. He confidently smiles, loudly declaring that in a modern state, only the nation can wield violence. He firmly states that a common criminal's weak violence ends completely in a single, short instant. His eyes glow intensely purple as he proudly declares that efficiently wielding violence is a prosecutor's job. Hanjo mentally recalls his past life as a prosecutor, handling nearly 450 serious crimes monthly. He states this massive caseload was over 50,000 cases, which is twice the average prosecutor's normal work. For the most sickening sex offenders, he would willingly fabricate evidence and deeply sway public opinion to his side. He proudly notes he wiped them out completely, confidently wondering how many criminals he killed with his silver tongue. Back in the dark forest, he mocks Pichushkin for merely clobbering 63 people with a blunt weapon, calling his violent life utterly pathetic. Hanjo claims he killed countless more using his enlightened tongue, earning deep respect and trust from human society. The masked demon Forneus openly praises Bune for picking a fine proxy and admits feeling incredibly jealous. Furious at the insults, Pichushkin loudly threatens to rip Hanjo apart, promising to forcefully yank out his tongue. The muscular killer aggressively activates his powerful war mode, the Kingdom, telling the prosecutor to thoroughly entertain him. Pichushkin recklessly charges directly forward, causing Forneus to angrily yell at the brainless idiot for his foolish attack. Hanjo effortlessly dodges the clumsy strike and deeply slashes Pichushkin, noting the perfect timing to simply run away. Forneus heavily scolds Pichushkin, complaining that the annoying prosecutor successfully escaped because of the oversized oaf's reckless charge. The muscular proxy goes completely berserk, violently smashing the forest ground and screaming he will crush Hanjo to death. Elsewhere, Hanjo silently hides behind a large tree, heavily frustrated that he is hiding from a mere criminal. He quickly realizes Pichushkin has enough raw strength to crack his blade, heavily deciding to lie completely low. Meanwhile, in a highly red-tinted wasteland, Benny Parker smoothly walks alongside the horned demon Barbados in human form. Benny happily asks if this specific place will finally fix her injured arm, firmly hoping her true partner is there. Back in the forest, Forneus suddenly appears directly behind the hiding Hanjo, easily startling the human prosecutor. The masked demon explains demons cannot kill proxies, smoothly offering a secret deal because he genuinely likes Hanjo. Forneus highly praises Hanjo's clever sophistry, noting that his muscle-brained proxy is completely useless at actual strategy. The demon proposes they secretly team up, knock out the idiot, and officially trade proxies when Bune arrives. Hanjo finds the sudden offer highly suspicious, demanding to know exactly why he should trust the masked devil. Fornius smoothly explains that the berserk Pichushkin suffered frontal lobe damage as a young child and lost his sight. Fornius actively points out a specific spot on Pichushkin's side entirely missing a chess piece, calling it his weak point. The demon claims police beatings caused this severe vulnerability, asking if the human prosecutor finally trusts him now. Hanjo quietly asks if demons truly cannot lie, to which Fornius firmly and confidently replies that it is true. Hanjo swiftly dashes directly toward the rampaging killer, tightly gripping his heavily cracked, glowing red demonic blade. Fornius sinisterly smirks, thinking humans are incredibly simple creatures who foolishly believe that immortal demons never tell lies. The demon internally reveals striking that exact spot unleashes the Mad King, heavily anticipating Hanjo's complete, brutal destruction. Suddenly, Hanjo violently leaps entirely over the muscular proxy, completely ignoring the fake weak point Fornius specifically indicated. Hanjo successfully pins Pichushkin to the ground with his sword, coldly stating even a rookie investigator could see through the childish lie. He aggressively drives his cracked red blade directly into the massive chess piece stuck on Pichushkin's bare shoulder. The masked demon Fornius curses loudly, completely outraged at the two-faced demon of division and his foolish proxy. Pichushkin furiously grabs the red blade with his bare hands and violently throws the human prosecutor completely away. Hanjo slowly stands up, holding his violently snapped sword, heavily questioning how brutish the massive killer can get. Pichushkin maniacally laughs, happily declaring the prosecutor is finally a worthy piece to close out his bloody chessboard. The killer's eyes glow brightly red as he aggressively screams that Hanjo will become an offering to the king. A massive dark aura furiously erupts from the killer as he recklessly charges directly toward the vulnerable prosecutor. At that moment, Hanjo firmly realizes he absolutely cannot dodge the incoming, highly destructive physical attack at all. Suddenly, a bright flash violently redirects the massive killer, completely surprising the heavily injured human prosecutor right away. The masked demon Fornius looks completely shocked as the horned demon Bune smoothly appears directly behind Hanjo. Bune calmly tells the prosecutor to go on, completely ignoring the deeply panicked questions from the masked demon. Bune angrily tells Fornius not to lump them together, expressing massive disappointment in his own runaway human proxy. The horned demon loudly complains that the stubborn public servant completely lacks creativity and snapped his own weapon. He heavily sighs, revealing the human prosecutor only offered his own life, making Bune feel completely scammed today. Bune casually tells Fornius to just finish the guy off, shockingly offering to surrender his proxy for free. Fornius bites its nails in deep panic, completely terrified because Bune once drove Demon King Bale near death. The masked demon heavily suspects the deeply cunning devil is secretly plotting a highly dangerous, massive trap now. Meanwhile, Hanjo angrily glares at Bune, strictly reminding the eloquent devil that if the proxy dies, Bune dies. Bune smiles menacingly and smoothly tells the prosecutor to permanently offer up his beloved daughter's soul right now. Bune promises that doing so will instantly grant enough immense power to easily crush the muscular killer entirely. Suddenly, Hanjo deeply remembers a completely warm memory of hugging his smiling little daughter, Seo, before bed. He remembers telling her he loves her, firmly keeping her precious image safely in his deeply guarded mind. Back in the present, Hanjo glares furiously with a glowing red aura, aggressively cursing the manipulative horned devil. Hanjo smiles sinisterly, firmly realizing the other demon was right about Bune's complete inability to read human thoughts. Bune looks heavily shocked, aggressively cursing Fornius for foolishly blabbing about his highly secret demonic limitations to humans. Suddenly, several massive, creepy gray hands violently emerge from the dark ground and aggressively grab the muscular killer. A powerful voice declares these hands are pawns meant to protect the king, directly targeting the berserk killer. Suddenly, a woman wearing white clothes smoothly dashes forward, violently slicing the creepy hands with her sharp rapiers. She is formally introduced as Bloody Queen Mary, a legendary historical ruler who viciously burned hundreds of people. A new mustache-wearing demon named Runaway casually appears, completely ignoring Bune to speak directly with the masked Fornius. Runaway calls Bune the absolute worst, most useless demon in hell, deeply infuriating the highly elegant horned devil. The Bloody Queen rapidly blocks heavy strikes from the wildly laughing muscular killer in a highly intense clash. Hanjo watches the violent fight very closely, firmly concluding that he will inevitably face whoever wins this battle. He tightly grips his broken blade, confidently deciding he still has a clear chance if he fights smartly. Bloody Queen Mary aggressively launches a massive barrage of rapid sword strikes at the muscular killer. Pichushkin heavily struggles to block the sharp rapiers, furiously screaming at the woman to stop scurrying around. He violently smashes the ground, unleashing a highly destructive blast and telling her to try dodging this. Mary swiftly leaps high into the gloomy trees, happily laughing and asking if he turned into mincemeat. Pichushkin fiercely glares up at her, angrily vowing to find her and grind her into smaller pieces. Meanwhile, Hanjo completely grips his broken sword handle, heavily realizing the sudden break felt like a bone fracture. He sharply deduces his powerful senses treat the demonic weapon as a connected part of his actual body. Hanjo aggressively swings the broken hilt, violently unleashing a long, whip-like red energy blade across the battlefield. The extended blood whip brutally slashes Pichushkin deeply across his broad back, causing immense physical pain. The muscular Proxy wildly screams in total agony, deeply confused about what the hell just hit him. Nearby, the masked demon Fornius looks incredibly shocked as Bune smoothly appears directly behind him. Bune calmly touches the masked demon, firmly telling Fornius not to cling to this fleeting existence anymore. The horned devil sincerely wishes for Fornius to finally end his everlasting time in complete, absolute peace. Fornius completely panics as his entire demonic body begins to violently dissolve into bright magical energy. Bune effortlessly absorbs the fading demon's soul directly into his glowing hand, completely ignoring the desperate pleas. Fornius heavily laments, claiming he would have followed Bune anywhere if he had become king of hell. Bune simply replies he is an introvert, and the whole king title absolutely is not his preferred style. Bune completely absorbs Fornius, coldly telling the dead demon that only his own personal pleasure truly matters. The scene transitions completely to a past memory, where a young Pichushkin plays chess with his angry father. The young boy violently smashes his alcoholic father with a heavy bottle after receiving a brutal checkmate. Pichushkin formally narrates that repeated physical violence from his father severely damaged his frontal lobe during childhood. He proudly admits he violently killed his first victim, his old man, when he was exactly 17. Back in the present, Hanjo fiercely glares with glowing purple eyes, strictly stating he is sick of this. He coldly declares that every single criminal desperately stacks up self-pitying excuses instead of feeling genuine remorse. Hanjo firmly states nobody cares about the killer's tragic story, and he absolutely hates pathetic sob stories. Hanjo heavily pants on the snowy ground, confidently remembering he also absorbed the old Proxy's demonic power. He calmly notes that using this borrowed power perfectly helped him quickly escape the terrifying Proxy purgatory. Suddenly, Mary smoothly approaches him, completely prompting Hanjo to violently strike her with his red energy whip. Mary effortlessly kicks the human prosecutor entirely down, firmly stating his weak attack is just a temporary fix. Hanjo leans closely toward the woman, aggressively whispering for her to completely crush the muscular Proxy Pichushkin. Mary smiles in deep amusement and quickly activates her newly acquired, highly terrifying demonic soul power. She loudly summons the Demon of the Stars, Dekarabia, fully displaying the stolen ability to control corpses. A massive, glowing, star-shaped demon projection violently erupts right behind her, preparing a massive, devastating magical attack. Hanjo watches closely, deeply surprised she can freely and perfectly control absorbed demonic souls exactly like this. As the massive magical dust clears, Mary calmly looks completely back to see if the violent attack finished. Hanjo swiftly dashes directly behind her, aggressively swinging his red blade, but she effortlessly blocks it backward. She smoothly praises his clever diversion while Hanjo heavily curses, desperately wondering if he has any other move. Right then, Bune loudly tells Hanjo to hand over an eyeball since he absolutely will not sacrifice his daughter. Suddenly, a massive, glowing, ghostly hand violently grabs the eloquent devil directly by his tall, dark neck. The massive, beastly demon of vengeance and truth, Flaros, fully manifests, holding Bune completely in a tight grip. The mustache demon, Ronoa, calmly states he wants to quietly observe the mortal's highly fleeting final moment. Bune smirks confidently, stating he isn't interested in babysitting an old man, and violently shatters the glowing hand. Moments later, the American shooter Benny Parker suddenly arrives on the dark battlefield, looking completely devastated. Benny Parker cries uncontrollably, angrily asking how her partner could secretly date another woman. The bloody Queen Mary stands firmly in front of Hanjo, coldly calling the crying shooter trash. Benny casually claims men are completely useless and strictly tells the angry woman to just die. She violently unleashes a massive blast of bright lightning magic directly toward the approaching enemy. Quickly reacting, Mary loudly summons the starry demon Decarabia to perfectly block a sudden rear attack. Mary strictly warns Hanjo not to do anything stupid while his back is completely wide open. She confidently promises the human prosecutor will definitely die if he foolishly tries to attack her. Hanjo tightly grips his bloody weapon and asks why the powerful queen does not just kill him. Mary smoothly offers a team-up, while nearby plague doctors excitedly throw a large capturing net. Mary effortlessly dodges the trap and summons giant, terrifying worm monsters to completely devour the screaming doctors. Benny furiously fires her heavy guns at Mary, angrily accusing the queen of stealing her man. Mary effortlessly blocks the rapid gunfire, firmly stating she only needs strong allies for the festival. She casually mentions Benny's boyfriend is absolutely not her type of man to date at all. Right then, the horned devil Bune smoothly appears directly beside the highly exhausted human prosecutor. Bune notes Hanjo cannot survive alone and urgently suggests they quickly run away from the violent fight. The ghostly soul of Forneus suddenly manifests directly behind Hanjo, easily startling the human prosecutor. He quickly asks Forneus who will ultimately win the current, highly intense battle between the women. Forneus firmly predicts Mary will win, noting she successfully cornered both him and the muscular killer earlier. Learning Mary never tried to peacefully team up before, Hanjo smirks and quickly runs into the dark forest. Meanwhile, Mary fiercely battles a giant white demon bird, forcefully pushing the massive creature entirely back. She quickly notices one enemy ran away, while Benny aims a heavy sniper rifle from afar. Benny tearfully vows to violently kill the woman who supposedly stole her beloved partner, Claude. Looking through her long scope, Benny suddenly spots a handsome man wearing a clean white coat. The man happily hugs the crying shooter, highly excited to finally reunite with his partner in hell. The man is officially introduced as Claude Barrow, an infamous American robber and dangerous historical murderer. Hanjo silently hides nearby, deeply frustrated that he constantly runs into the absolute worst historical criminals. Claude warmly compliments Benny's beauty, but she suddenly shoots him directly in the chest with a rifle. Benny angrily screams for the trash to drop dead, claiming she doesn't know this specific man. Suddenly, Claude's body crackles with intense purple lightning as he furiously asks who twisted his Benny's personality. Claude completely misinterprets the situation and wildly assumes Hanjo is her brand new romantic boyfriend. The furious robber instantly attacks Hanjo, brutally slashing the exhausted prosecutor with a glowing weapon. Hanjo violently spits bright red blood as the massive physical strike sends him flying backward. Claude rapidly readies a glowing white bow, firmly declaring that Hanjo's luck has finally ended. Suddenly, Benny violently attacks Claude with massive demon hands, angrily screaming that Claude is hers. Claude easily blocks the heavy attack, looking completely confused and asking if she forgot him. Benny furiously fires her gun, wildly screaming for the bastard to just drop dead instantly. Claude smiles confidently despite his bleeding wounds, calmly warning he might have to step in. Meanwhile, Barbados casually watches from a tree, clearly bored by the pointless, immortal Proxy fight. The demon of pleasure, Larage, smoothly appears beside him, playfully mocking their completely useless fighting. Larage rapidly fires a massive barrage of glowing purple arrows, happily savoring the endless pain. Moments later, Hanjo slowly wakes up completely battered on the dark, gloomy purple forest floor. Mary calmly looks down at the human prosecutor, revealing he was unconscious for a day. Mary firmly demands his answer right now, directly asking if he will team up together. Bune smoothly approaches, strictly warning the prosecutor to move before they lose their heads entirely. Hanjo carefully remembers Mary's dark historical past, recalling how she violently burned hundreds of people. He smoothly asks why she specifically chose him as her ally in this violent festival. Mary sincerely explains she wants Solomon's ring to permanently erase all her horrific historical sins. She firmly states that fighting alone is impossible because greedy proxies only chase selfish desires. Mary wrongly assumes Benny is Hanjo's ex-girlfriend, prompting the prosecutor to quickly correct the misunderstanding. She calmly reveals she desperately needs a strong partner who selflessly fights for others today. Bune interrupts, mocking Mary and firmly questioning if Hanjo can truly trust a condemned sinner. The mustache demon Ronoe highly agrees, strictly warning that trusting her will lead to death. Hanjo heavily groans in intense physical pain, firmly deciding he will officially work with Mary. He coldly tells the complaining demons that proxy cooperation is absolutely none of their business. Bune looks highly annoyed, while Ronoe loudly laments being stuck with such a battered proxy. Mary urgently states they must hurry because Hanjo's severe proxy injuries absolutely will not heal. She strictly explains he must borrow Phoenix's healing power or kill another proxy to recover. Bune highly mocks their reckless plan, firmly warning that random thugs will easily destroy Hanjo. The Horned Devil strictly clarifies that the immortal demons absolutely will not fight for them. Suddenly, a strange man buried in the ground with flower wreaths loudly begs to join. Hanjo fiercely glares with glowing purple eyes as the strange man desperately begs for mercy. The man is revealed as cult leader Taiga Kaki, claiming he knows where Phoenix is. Cult leader Taiga Kaki happily smiles and tells Hanjo he always wanted to meet the upright human prosecutor. Hanjo questions how such a pure man ended up in hell after secretly fleeing with stolen assets. He strictly asks what the cult leader is doing here. Kaki admits he pulled strings to avoid Hanjo's investigation, which would have surely given him life in prison. Kaki explains he set off for his own paradise but was suddenly shot by greedy men on a boat. He angrily curses prosecutors and police as tax thieves for completely letting those dangerous insects walk free. Hanjo coldly mocks the self-proclaimed messiah for completely failing to predict his own sudden death day. Kaki furiously accuses the human prosecutor of blasphemy, but Hanjo firmly commands the loud trash to stay quiet. Hanjo states he has absolutely no interest in bogus prophecies and demands to speak with the master. A blindfolded demon entirely bound in a white straitjacket is fully revealed as the demon of prophecy, Astaroth. Kaki loudly claims he repented and wants to live a proper life, hoping to send sinners to heaven. Astaroth interrupts, stating his proxy is utterly useless since his given weapon is just a simple recorder. Astaroth strictly explains they want to link up with strong fighters to officially survive the violent festival. He claims he clearly saw a winning future if he joins forces with Bune and Ronoe. Ronoe strictly calls Astaroth a cheeky liar who deliberately twists whatever he sees to completely suit himself. Mary firmly agrees, pointing her sharp sword at Kaki's neck and strictly suggesting they erase him early. Hanjo surprisingly agrees with Mary, stating he can finally pass the legal judgment he missed in life. Kaki laughs maniacally, loudly stating a true saintly ruler always stays completely close to the powerless people. Hanjo tells the trash to shut up, deciding he'd rather have one more highly useful pawn right now. He strictly tells Mary to lower her sword, secretly planning to steal Astaroth's valuable prophecy power somehow. Suddenly, a glowing magical lasso violently wraps around Hanjo's ankle and forcefully pulls him entirely upside down. The plague doctors happily cheer, highly amazed they successfully caught a devil's proxy with Phoenix's blessed lasso. Cursing his terrible timing, Hanjo watches closely as Kaki suddenly begins playing his musical recorder extremely loudly. Kaki smugly reveals his special power sounds like pure noise to highly powerful demons and other proxies. The low-level plague doctors absolutely cannot resist the magical music and forcefully begin dancing completely out of control. Hanjo notes they are finally safe and firmly orders the group to push straight toward Phoenix's hidden lair. Hanjo heavily sighs, looking at his new bizarre team consisting of a corrupt official, murderer, and cult leader. He smoothly compares their completely mismatched, chaotic team to the infamous town musicians of Bremen's story. Elsewhere, the muscular Claude and the demon Larage closely watch the strange group traveling through the forest. Larage notes taking down the flute player will grant them the highly useful prophecy power to defeat Barbados. Claude aims his hand like a gun, casually asking if he should shoot the vulnerable targets right now. Larage confidently advises they should quietly tail the traveling group and patiently wait for the perfect moment. Back at the group, Mary suddenly halts their march by pressing her sharp blade against Kaki's neck. She firmly states they are taking a break because the human prosecutor is absolutely not doing well. Astaroth agrees Hanjo must deeply rest to heavily recover before violently attacking the healing demon Phoenix fast. Kaki angrily complains about their treatment, deeply furious that a woman dares look down on the supposed messiah. The cult leader, Kaki, loudly plays his glowing magical recorder directly against the traveling group. Mary forcefully struggles against the bright energy and swiftly drops directly to her knees. Kaki boldly declares he is the true Messiah and deeply desires to be an omnipotent being. He proudly claims he wants to completely bend everything in the world to his absolute will. Mary fiercely glares up at the arrogant man with a highly serious facial expression. Kaki mockingly offers to bestow his special grace upon the powerful former human queen. He crazily yells about firing his grace while staring directly at the exhausted woman. Mary suddenly points her sharp sword straight at his neck with bright, glowing blue eyes. She strictly threatens to violently kill him and move on if he desperately needs to rest. Kaki heavily sweats and nervously agrees to keep playing his magical music right away. The terrified man forcefully blows into his recorder while Mary calmly walks entirely ahead. He furiously curses the queen in his mind for completely mocking the great Messiah. The angry cult leader firmly vows to brutally torture her to death once his true power awakens. He angrily imagines forcing the proud woman to become his completely crawling slave. Moments later, the strange group temporarily stops their long march in the gloomy purple forest. Hanjo heavily grips his side as bright red blood violently pours from his severe physical wound. Mary closely watches him, accurately noting his painful injuries are much worse than she initially thought. She deeply respects how the human prosecutor stubbornly hides the intense physical pain from his face. She strictly concludes he is exactly like her, completely willing to grab victory by any dangerous means. Mary firmly deduces the prosecutor has something extremely precious he desperately wants to protect. The blindfolded demon Astaroth suddenly arrives, calmly announcing he completely drove off the trailing enemies. Meanwhile, Kaki comfortably sits on the ground and directly asks the bleeding prosecutor a personal question. He smoothly asks why a supposedly pure guardian of the law ended up in this dark hell. Kaki curiously questions if the human prosecutor actually killed a living person in the mortal world. Hanjo heavily smiles with glowing purple eyes and confidently admits he killed more than he can count. He coldly explains that legally killing someone is extremely easy if you exploit system gaps. The prosecutor firmly declares that every single criminal he violently killed completely deserved to die. Kaki loudly laughs, casually pointing out Hanjo is not the type to peacefully choose death. The cult leader accurately mentions Chairman Ishiwata, a powerful man Hanjo ruthlessly hounded to death. Kaki smoothly lists multiple old murder cases that completely lacked any solid physical evidence. He correctly deduces the angry prosecutor deliberately fabricated fake evidence to properly secure a guilty verdict. Hanjo fiercely glares, strictly asking if punishing real scum with dirty tricks is actually a crime. The eloquent devil Bune loudly laughs, openly admitting he deliberately tricked the human into hell. Astaroth calmly steps forward, deeply questioning who truly decides what a real sin is. Hanjo laughs out loud, prompting Kaki to furiously yell at the blind five-fingered mortals. The angry cult leader suddenly reveals Hanjo's beloved daughter will inevitably commit a terrible murder. He loudly claims the human prosecutor is blindly fighting to completely protect a future killer. Kaki firmly states the daughter would never have fallen if Hanjo simply dropped out completely. Hanjo stands completely shocked. He heavily panics at the highly disturbing thought of his precious daughter becoming a violent killer. Quickly regaining his absolute focus, Hanjo firmly decides not to let the manipulative demon's words shake him. He coldly resolves to violently kill Kaki and forcefully steal the valuable power of prophecy. Astaroth smoothly mocks Bune for using the human proxy's mouth like a cheap, simple puppet. Mary quietly watches the tense argument, suddenly recalling a highly destructive memory from the 16th century. A massive historical city burns brightly as a desperate man strictly begs Mary to flee to Spain. Mary firmly refuses to leave, proudly declaring the burning land entirely belongs to England forever. She coldly states if she violently dies, the word Calais will be deeply carved into her heart. The legendary queen silently concludes that foolishly showing romantic love only makes a person incredibly weak. Back in the dark forest, the mustache demon Renoe tells Mary to patiently hide her rage. Bune smoothly looks up at the red sky, heavily complaining that hell is a painfully boring place. The horned devil casually admits he is finally starting to properly understand the bizarre enjoyment of pain. Elsewhere, the horned demon Barbados sits entirely alone on the completely ruined purple battlefield. His heavily injured body is brutally pierced by multiple glowing arrows from the recent intense fight. Meanwhile, in a ruined bar, Claude violently holds a bloody knife over a fallen man in a suit. He crazily yells for the cowering man to run his mouth exactly like he did back in prison. The blonde shooter, Benny, suddenly enters the bloody room as a terrified woman desperately runs past her. Claude holds a gun and casually reminds Benny they firmly agreed to violently eliminate every single witness. Benny angrily accuses him of completely breaking their promise since they already made enough money for their happiness. Later, Benny uses a dark phone booth, desperately telling Claude to hurry up and get out of there. Elsewhere, in the dark forest of hell, Claude rests with multiple sharp arrows deeply stuck in his back. Barbados tells her to keep resting. He cheerfully states he is finally enjoying physical pain again. Benny heavily mocks men's fake toughness. She firmly asks Barbados where the cheating cat is, so they can quickly finish off the enemies. Benny violently declares she wants to turn the two women into Swiss cheese to win the festival. Barbados strictly warns her against fighting Bune head-on since the stubborn demon is their absolute worst enemy. Benny notes Barbados's demon partner Laragi will definitely sulk if she hears him talking like that. Barbados calmly replies he views Laragi like his own child and plans to take her out last. He thoughtfully considers eventually using his ultimate ring wish completely for someone else instead of his own selfish desires. Back at the gloomy forest clearing, the mustache demon Ronoi loudly coughs, heavily complaining about the incredibly dry air inside the thick forest. Bune angrily tells the old man to quickly spit out whatever annoying thing he wants to deeply say. Ronoi recalls seeing Bune's highly reckless charge toward the tower and directly questions his ultimate survival plan. He completely mocks Bune for stubbornly trying to collect all fragments with such an incredibly useless human proxy. Bune furiously yells at Ronoi for deeply insulting his proxy's honorable chivalry in actively protecting the weak. The mustache demon confidently promises that Bune will definitely bow to him before long in this festival. Hanjo firmly grips his fist, prompting the cult leader Kaki to nervously ask about his suddenly healed hand. The prosecutor fiercely glares at Kaki, aggressively asking if the fake messiah plans to suddenly attack him. Hanjo strictly orders the terrified cult leader to quickly go back and gather the abandoned plague doctors. Soon after, Kaki angrily runs through the forest, heavily complaining about being bossed around by a complete sociopath. He furiously asks the blindfolded demon Astaroth if he can violently kill the human prosecutor right now. Astaroth firmly states his prophecies never miss and strictly tells Kaki to move forward believing in his power. Kaki confidently plays his magical recorder, easily controlling a massive horde of dancing plague doctors behind him. They finally reach Phoenix's massive mansion, and Hanjo aggressively orders the controlled horde to charge directly head-on. The cult leader Kaki nervously plays his musical recorder, completely terrified by the massive demon army. He heavily worries the prosecutor will just use his power up and immediately throw him away. Hanjo quickly explains they will rapidly rush toward Phoenix while the confused demons fiercely fight each other. Astaroth firmly confirms his prophecies will clearly guide their path as Kaki violently bleeds from his mouth. Hanjo calmly notices Kaki's magical music power is rapidly reaching its absolute physical limit. The prosecutor tightly grips his cracked weapon handle, feeling it completely transform into a more comfortable shape. He sinisterly smiles, entirely preparing to aggressively steal the blindfolded demon's powerful prophecy abilities right now. Suddenly, he stops completely, firmly realizing a noble immortal demon would never simply throw their proxy away. At that moment, a violent lightning kick suddenly sends the bleeding Kaki flying completely across the ground. A young man wearing a clean white coat complains about his heavily damaged eyesight ruining his aim. The horned demon Laragi strictly scolds the young man for recklessly taking hits despite his healing powers. The attacker, Claude, fiercely taunts Hanjo, confidently stating he absolutely cannot miss from this close distance. Hanjo smoothly smirks, coldly mocking Claude's famously tragic historical past regarding severe prison bullying and failed romance. Furious at the deep insult, Claude angrily screams for the prosecutor to just shut his mouth entirely. Claude recklessly attacks with his staff, aggressively vowing to violently kill the prosecutor with his own hands. Hanjo effortlessly dodges the heavy strikes and powerfully counterattacks, forcing the angry robber completely backward. Meanwhile, Laragi smoothly steps directly on the heavily injured Kaki, highly questioning Astaroth's complete lack of concern. The mustache demon Ronoi calmly approaches, fully ready to formally negotiate a highly favorable deal right away. Laragi flashes a terrifying demonic smile, aggressively demanding they permanently hand over the bleeding cult leader now. Back at the fight, Claude crazily swings his weapon, loudly declaring the prosecutor's cheap tricks are useless. The furious robber violently strikes the human prosecutor with immense physical force in the gloomy forest. Suddenly, brutally slices Claude's entire arm completely off in a bloody instant. Claude sinisterly smiles with a highly corrupted eye, wildly claiming the prosecutor truly lacks any actual imagination. Massive jagged energy arrows violently erupt directly from Claude's severed limb as he maniacally threatens to kill everyone. Laraj furiously screams at her crazy Proxy, strictly warning his reckless transformation completely ruins their secret plan. Suddenly, the bloody Queen Mary swiftly appears, loudly summoning Decarabia's starry magic to forcefully block the attack. Claude violently grapples the powerful queen, completely transforming his entire body into a massive, highly dangerous bow. Laraj heavily sighs in deep frustration, coldly deciding to finally bid the entire group a permanent goodbye. She fully unleashes a truly massive barrage of glowing arrows directly at the desperately charging queen. A massive barrage of glowing purple arrows rains down heavily. Larejo smiles with glowing energy, claiming demons are completely numb to physical pain. He mockingly asks how it feels to have flesh and tendons violently pierced. The horned devil Bune blocks the arrows with his arm, calling the attacker a mouthy brat. He strictly tells the older demon that the sudden arrow attack was a cheap shot. The mustache demon Renoue apologizes but sincerely appreciates the sudden save from the flying arrows. He calmly thinks that his own Proxy would have easily handled that level of attack. The bloody Queen Mary lies completely pinned to the ground by multiple sharp arrows. Kaki also lies heavily bleeding with arrows violently stuck deeply into his entire body. Claude stands firmly among the arrows, holding a severed arm and declaring they will meet again. He states they will meet at the castle in one piece next time. Kaki lies helpless on the bloody ground, desperately telling the human prosecutor he will die. Hanjo firmly replies they must rapidly reach Phoenix to quickly heal their severe injuries. He suddenly realizes Kaki is no longer playing his glowing magical recorder at all. Hanjo violently grabs the bleeding Kaki by his clothes, aggressively demanding the exact castle location. Kaki weakly replies that Hanjo will just throw him away if he tells the truth. He desperately begs Hanjo to take him along, loudly claiming they are true comrades now. Hanjo completely ignores the plea, strictly ordering the injured man to just play the recorder. Kaki heavily struggles to blow into the pink recorder, but absolutely no sound comes out. With crazy glowing eyes, he smiles and admits his lungs are completely shot right now. Kaki smoothly asks the prosecutor to lend him a shoulder as a true comrade. Suddenly, a massive group of heavily armed plague doctors quickly rushes toward their exact position. Hanjo supports Kaki, telling Mary they must hold out until they successfully reach Phoenix. Hanjo aggressively swings his glowing red energy whip, brutally slashing the incoming enemies. Mary fiercely fights alongside him, using her sharp sword to violently cut down the doctors. The demons closely watch the brutal fight, with Ronoe calmly noting it is highly impressive. Bune casually touches Astaroth's shoulder, smoothly asking the blindfolded demon to perform another prophecy. He specifically asks Astaroth to clearly foresee who will win the entire Millennial Festival. Astaroth confidently states that Isaku Hanjo is the one who will ultimately win the festival. As Hanjo violently slashes a plague doctor, Ronoe loudly calls the bold prophecy completely ridiculous. Bune excitedly asks what he should do once he successfully gets the powerful ring. He strictly tells the mustache demon not to get the wrong idea about the winner. Bune laughs maniacally, finding the entire chaotic situation absolutely delightful and completely entertaining. The horned devil strictly promises to watch if that joy truly lasts until the end. Bune suddenly stops and seriously asks if those exact words were part of the prophecy. Astaroth smiles calmly, softly admitting he was simply messing with the highly eloquent devil. Ronoe firmly declares he will absolutely never allow Bune's Proxy to cause a pathetic tragedy. Soon after, Hanjo, Mary, and Kaki slowly walk directly into the massive castle entrance. Hanjo heavily holds his bleeding head as he completely steps through the bright doorway. He looks around entirely shocked, quickly realizing the place looks exactly like modern-day Japan. Hanjo deeply stares at the city intersection, firmly stating this is exactly where he died. Kaki excitedly points out Japan, mentioning it is famously known as the land of the rising sun. Hanjo calmly notes this place absolutely should not be a normal Proxy's mental purgatory. He is deeply surprised that the demon Phoenix can easily create this specific modern illusion. The prosecutor strictly tells Mary and Kaki to stay highly sharp as enemies quickly approach. He accurately notices heavily armed plague doctors completely surrounding them on the city crosswalk. Hanjo firmly states the welcome party here is going to be incredibly rough today. Elsewhere, a heavily bandaged woman slowly wakes up inside a brightly lit hospital room. A man smoothly asks if the loud commotion outside easily caused her to wake up. He assumes the foolish intruders are loudly howling to take them down and win. The man carefully pours a bright red liquid directly into a clear glass cup. He calmly tells the woman he would be the worst demon if she chose someone else. The man softly tells the bandaged woman she is absolutely everything to him. He smiles warmly, sincerely declaring his deep love for her in the quiet room. The red-haired demon Phoenix leans in completely and gently kisses the injured woman. He firmly promises to keep living for her even 1 second longer if he can. Phoenix violently vows to brutally kill the intruders and completely devour every last body. The hospital room is fully shown completely filled with multiple tied-up, struggling human bodies. Phoenix gently holds the bandaged woman, who is fully revealed as the criminal Maria Hugel. She is historically known as a terrible demon nurse who violently poisoned countless innocent newborns. The powerful healing demon completely prepares to protect his Proxy from the highly dangerous intruders. He firmly holds his beloved partner, entirely ready for the upcoming brutal Proxy battle. Creeping, shadowy monsters quickly surround Hanjo, Kaki, and Mary directly on the modern city crosswalk. Kaki looks around nervously, heavily bleeding but happily recognizing his beautiful former hometown of Roppongi. Mary points her sharp sword at Kaki, angrily stating his chosen routes feel deeply malicious. She strictly demands a good reason to keep the completely suspicious cult leader alive today. Kaki desperately begs for mercy, loudly insisting his powerful prophecies absolutely never miss their mark. Kaki suggests they patiently wait for the separated demons before moving further into the city. Hanjo violently slices the shadowy figures, firmly declaring that escaping this area comes first. Running past buildings, Kaki happily points out a yakiniku restaurant with supposedly amazing side dishes. He suddenly stops walking, wildly demanding they eat first because he is currently starving. Hanjo fiercely glares, strictly ordering the broken man to guide them properly right now. Kaki wildly screams at Hanjo, furiously declaring he is not a lackey and his path is right. He suddenly turns around, happily claiming his 100 beautiful brides are waiting at his nearby church. Hanjo seriously contemplates violently finishing Kaki to steal his prophecy power before things get worse. Elsewhere, Barbados angrily watches the bloody streets, heavily wishing he had surrendered Kaki much earlier. Laraja questions the bound demon Astaroth, strictly asking if he was forcefully punished with this useless proxy. Kaki excitedly runs toward an alley, happily hallucinating a large group of cheering brides in white dresses. The smiling brides warmly welcome the Messiah, making Kaki proudly declare he absolutely belongs in heaven. Suddenly, a massive monster violently attacks, causing bright red blood to furiously splatter across the street. Hanjo brutally punches Kaki directly to the ground, coldly asking if the garbage regained his senses. He aggressively grabs Kaki's collar, strictly demanding the exact directions to reach Phoenix immediately. Mary violently slashes surrounding enemies, frantically yelling she is reaching her limit as Kaki reveals the alley. Barbados excitedly spots the group entering the path and confidently jumps down to forcefully follow them. He violently crashes against an invisible magical wall, completely realizing the portal is now closed. The mustache demon Ronawe smoothly mocks the failed jump as a highly cheap slapstick gag. Hanjo, Mary, and Kaki violently fall into a dark stone dungeon filled with flying toothy monsters. Hanjo aggressively slashes the terrifying monsters, strictly ordering his 2 injured companions to keep moving. Mary closely watches Hanjo, deeply amazed by his astonishingly rapid physical growth and expanding fighting techniques. She heavily wonders if she could ever actually defeat the powerful human prosecutor in battle. Kaki nervously guides Hanjo, internally questioning why this cold-blooded, torturous monster is incredibly strong. Remembering a prophecy where he successfully stabs Hanjo, Kaki dangerously contemplates fully unleashing his hidden power. In a quiet hospital room, Demon Phoenix states that the devil's proxies will arrive soon. Maria softly asks if he deeply regrets choosing her as his proxy. Phoenix gently touches her face, firmly declaring that he loved her first as a powerful demon. He sincerely admits his only real regret is his complete failure to turn her into a demon. Phoenix sadly states that this specific mistake doomed her beautiful human body to slowly rot away. Maria drinks from a glass of red medicine, warmly telling him she has absolutely no regrets. She smiles, stating she can deeply feel his love every single time she drinks the medicine. Phoenix gently hugs her, strictly noting the medicine is only a temporary stopgap for her condition. He firmly vows to securely obtain Solomon's ring to permanently transform her into a true demon. Phoenix aggressively declares he will violently kill any foolish proxy who enters and offer their life. Meanwhile, outside in a dark hallway, the cult leader Kaki secretly clutches his pink musical recorder. He deeply contemplates fully unleashing his hidden true power to violently finish the human prosecutor right there. Suddenly, Hanjo coldly turns and strictly asks Kaki which specific door they should officially open next. Kaki heavily panics, quickly dropping his dangerous thoughts and nervously realizing a failed attack would end badly. The bleeding man rapidly breathes, heavily deciding he did well by completely holding his secret power back. The Bloody Queen Mary smoothly notes there are exactly 6 heavy doors entirely lining the dark room. She violently grabs the bleeding Kaki directly by his collar, aggressively throwing him completely to the ground. Mary forcefully steps directly on Kaki's face, coldly stating his annoying whining sounds like a death wish. She strictly explains the doors were specifically made by Phoenix to quickly move Solomon's demons around safely. She firmly warns that opening a door without permission leads directly to the absolute worst possible demons. Hanjo strictly orders Kaki to quickly find the exact door that safely leads to the healing demon. Kaki places his bleeding hand entirely on a heavy door, loudly praying for his prophecy to work. His eye brightly glows yellow as he suddenly receives a truly terrifying vision of the massive Demon King. Kaki heavily panics, quickly realizing that opening a door leading to Baal would instantly kill the trio. Terrified, the cult leader steps back and nervously suggests they violently open another door to find allies. Hanjo fiercely glares, aggressively stabbing his broken red blade directly into the wall next to Kaki. The human prosecutor coldly states he is completely done taking useless orders from pathetic, lying criminals. Hanjo strictly tells Kaki to just die here, loudly claiming the cult leader heavily overestimates his worth. Kaki furiously screams back, angrily asking how Hanjo will ever find Phoenix without his powerful prophecy. Hanjo confidently smirks, firmly pointing out that killing the fake messiah simply makes things slightly more annoying. Kaki angrily yells that absolutely no one will ever follow a leader who treats comrades like trash. Hanjo smoothly replies he will firmly trust Kaki, accurately noting the man stared at one door longest. As Hanjo reaches directly for the terrifying door leading to Baal, Kaki violently panics in absolute fear. The bleeding cult leader desperately begs him to stop, frantically pointing directly to the actual correct door. Hanjo completely stops, coldly threatening to violently rip Kaki's guts out if he ever says comrades again. The strange group finally enters a bright hospital ward completely filled with heavily bandaged, suffering patients. The trapped victims desperately beg for death as Kaki looks around in complete shock at the horror. Hanjo firmly admits he has absolutely no idea what kind of terrible creature Phoenix actually is today. Phoenix smoothly approaches from the bright light, calmly stating his true identity does not matter at all. The powerful healing demon coldly declares that the only thing that truly matters to them is healing. Mary and Kaki completely freeze, heavily feeling the truly immense physical pressure radiating from the approaching demon. Hanjo calmly notes the bandaged woman hiding behind Phoenix is actually his designated human proxy today. Phoenix looks deeply annoyed, suddenly dashing forward and violently grabbing the human prosecutor directly by his face. The red-haired demon fiercely glares, loudly stating Hanjo's highly irritating speech proves he is Bune's worst proxy. Phoenix aggressively vows he would easily crush Hanjo's skull right now if this wasn't the Millennial Festival. Mary swiftly attacks from behind, violently swinging her sharp swords, but Phoenix effortlessly dodges the heavy strikes. Hanjo confidently asks the noble demon if he simply refuses to put his proxy against them. The human prosecutor smoothly smirks, directly asking the angry Phoenix if he is completely wrong about the romance. Phoenix fiercely glares, strictly telling Hanjo his fine tongue is completely useless since he barely stands. The healing demon raises his arm, boldly declaring the prosecutor should use his tongue to lick his feet. The bandaged zombies instantly start moving as Phoenix coldly promises to spare Hanjo if he formally bows. Hanjo firmly replies he absolutely did not come here to fight Phoenix, but specifically for the cult leader. He confidently asks if Phoenix thinks he cannot brutally kill Kaki just because he needs his prophecy power. Hanjo smoothly reminds Phoenix that his demonic contract with Bune allows him to freely control dead corpses. He firmly states he completely absorbs the unique magic abilities of absolutely anyone he violently kills. Hanjo points at Kaki, correctly noting the bleeding man secretly hides his true power for a desperate moment. Hanjo deeply mocks Phoenix for acting tough while pathetically hiding behind completely useless, low-level small fry. The prosecutor loudly laughs, calling the noble demon highly romantic for hopelessly falling in love with his Proxy. Kaki heavily panics, completely shocked that Hanjo is boldly winning a shouting match against an immortal demon. Phoenix fiercely glares, strictly demanding to know exactly how the human prosecutor quickly figured out his secret romance. Hanjo confidently smirks, smoothly explaining the grotesque bodies and Phoenix stepping out personally made it highly obvious. Phoenix's eye violently twitches as he coldly warns the arrogant human prosecutor that everyone will probably die here. The red-haired demon firmly admits he has absolutely no intention of throwing his beloved Proxy into the festival. He sincerely states he desperately wants to stay completely beside his human partner for just 1 second longer. Hanjo firmly orders Phoenix to heal them so they can immediately leave the hospital ward and walk away alone. Phoenix heavily facepalms, completely annoyed by the arrogant human prosecutor boldly demanding a stay of execution. The powerful demon coldly explains that ultimate verdicts are always handed down by the one with absolute authority. Phoenix aggressively declares the supreme authority in this room entirely belongs to him as a noble demon. Suddenly, the creepy bandaged zombies rapidly charge directly toward the heavily injured cult leader Kaki. Completely panicked, Kaki rapidly grabs his pink recorder, fully preparing to unleash his highly dangerous true power. Instantly, a massive magical wind forcefully pulls the charging zombies completely back across the hospital room. Kaki looks entirely shocked, quickly realizing his severe physical wounds and deep arrow injuries are suddenly healed. Phoenix coldly states he has properly shown enough of his immense healing power to the useless Proxy. The healing demon strictly orders Kaki to brutally fight Bune's Proxy and the bloody Queen Mary right now. He confidently promises to fully restore Kaki's broken body if he successfully wins the violent battle. Phoenix strictly expects Hanjo's confident swordsmanship to completely overwhelm 2 enemy Proxies at the exact same time. Mary seriously contemplates her choices, heavily realizing she must unfortunately side with the human prosecutor to win. Kaki heavily panics, quickly deducing that if Hanjo tragically dies, the valuable prophecy falls completely apart. He angrily realizes Mary will definitely kill him like a dog, regardless of Phoenix's highly tempting offer. Completely desperate, Kaki rapidly brings the pink recorder directly to his mouth, firmly vowing to win the festival. Phoenix gently hugs Maria, softly stating her lovely smile completely soothes his deeply tired, immortal soul. He happily smiles, coldly admitting that watching her completely trapped in absolute fear never gets old. Suddenly, Bune smoothly appears in the room alongside the mustache demon Ronoe, looking entirely surprised. Phoenix coldly glares at the horned devil, strictly declaring this is the absolute last time they cross paths. Kaki confidently assumes Hanjo burned through absolutely all his energy just reaching the deep hospital ward. He wildly decides to violently kill the prosecutor first and completely finish off the woman right after. Hanjo effortlessly dodges the clumsy strike and brutally slices Kaki's head completely off with his red whip. Bune and Ronoe closely watch the violent execution, highly impressed by the severed head's massive airtime. The blindfolded demon Astaroth smoothly arrives, calmly noting this was a nice chance to finally deepen their friendship. Kaki's severed head violently screams from the floor, furiously asking why the prosecutor brutally attacked him. The severed head aggressively yells, crazily asking if Hanjo actually thought cutting off his head would kill him. Hanjo fiercely glares directly down at the screaming head, coldly telling the loud cult leader to shut up. Kaki furiously screams back, violently vowing to brutally kill the human prosecutor here no matter what happens. Suddenly, a massive blast of bright magical energy violently erupts directly from the pink flute. Hanjo and the bloody Queen Mary are forcefully pushed completely back by the highly ridiculous flute blast. Kaki's floating head aggressively yells that he absolutely refuses to die and will never die here. Just as Hanjo was about to attack with his sword, Mary suddenly stepped in front of Kaki and blocked the prosecutor's sword. Kaki aggressively commands his loyal followers to quickly get over there and violently tear the wretched heretic apart. Hanjo fiercely glares, firmly vowing to violently bury the one who blinded him with love with his own hands. The human prosecutor tries to dodge Mary's brutal swing attacks, while Kaki laughs maniacally, loudly telling Hanjo that it absolutely serves him right for the earlier brutal attack. He proudly reveals the tiny, bizarre physical form is the true hidden power of the great Messiah. Meanwhile, the blindfolded demon Astaroth closely watches the fight, strictly calling the bizarre transformation a completely revolting attack. The mustache demon Ronoe smoothly reminds Astaroth that they are demons, strictly making this behavior their very nature. Astaroth calmly explains that Kaki's Proxy lived in constant terror of having his numerous lies exposed to humanity. Astaroth notes that Kaki completely drowned himself in the dark pleasure of deceit and kept piling up lies. He firmly states Kaki walked forward without any hesitation, heavily breathing in that fouled air for so long. The demon concludes Kaki lies exactly as easily as he breathes, deeply understanding the true weight of that sin. Elsewhere, Phoenix gently holds his bandaged Proxy, completely ignoring the chaotic battle happening right in front of them. Phoenix coldly states that giving her a filthy body drenched entirely in greed is hardly something to celebrate. The noble healing demon firmly promises to safely offer her a pure, untainted body truly worthy of her nobility. Back at the fight, Hanjo aggressively unleashes a massive barrage of highly destructive red slashes at the tiny enemy. Tiny Kaki effortlessly dodges every single heavy strike, completely frustrating the heavily injured human prosecutor on the battlefield. Hanjo heavily realizes his enemy's dodging skill and physical experience are operating on a completely different, much higher level. Hanjo firmly concludes that as things currently stand, he absolutely cannot win this violent fight through normal means. Hanjo firmly realizes the only way to officially win the festival is to completely take Kaki out now. Suddenly, tiny Kaki leaps high into the air, holding his sharp flute and happily declaring his prophecy as fulfilled. He maniacally screams that the final time has come as he violently plunges downward toward the human prosecutor. Hanjo casually looks down with a highly sinister smile, smoothly asking why Kaki thinks he took that telegraphed hit. The prosecutor firmly asks if Kaki knows exactly why he managed to stay completely alive all this time. Hanjo coldly reveals he simply chose not to kill him earlier, strictly declaring that specific choice is now over. Hanjo heavily bleeds from his chest wound, firmly admitting he is truly at his absolute physical limit now. He strictly realizes he must violently finish Kaki off incredibly fast before his own body completely shuts down. Tiny Kaki laughs hysterically on the ground, loudly declaring this violent outcome is the absolute best scenario. Watching from afar, Ronoe smoothly asks the other powerful demons who gets the spoils of this bloody battle. Boone calmly notes that human hearts are safely located on the left side, meaning Hanjo avoided a fatal blow. Boone firmly concludes that even with that severe chest wound, the human prosecutor must be about completely done. Kaki furiously screams at Mary, aggressively ordering the hesitant queen to quickly cut Hanjo's head off right now. The tiny cult leader crazily thinks that if she takes Hanjo's head, he will forcefully steal the prosecutor's body. Kaki firmly believes securing Hanjo's highly capable physical body will easily guarantee his ultimate victory in the festival. He wildly smiles, completely confident that his perfect prophecy will finally become a true reality today. The bloody queen rapidly swings her sharp sword directly at the heavily bleeding Hanjo to finish the violent job. Suddenly, the horned demon Boone forms a truly sinister smile and calmly bids farewell to the demon who cast love aside. Hanjo aggressively uses his glowing red demonic arm to forcefully block Mary's deadly strike despite his severe chest wound. He violently strikes back on pure physical reflex, prompting Mary to strictly note that the human prosecutor is incredibly stubborn. Mary firmly declares that Hanjo is completely finished now as she heavily struggles against his sudden, highly forceful resistance. Kaki furiously yells at Mary, strictly commanding her to prove her deep love for the Messiah by offering the enemy's head. Meanwhile, Mary forcefully holds her sharp sword directly over the heavily injured prosecutor, suddenly remembering a highly tragic past. A vivid flashback clearly shows Mary sitting silently on a grand throne while a desperate man loudly professes his deep love. He firmly claims he only tried to protect Calais because he loved her, desperately offering his heart to properly prove it. Mary heavily cries, strictly ordering everyone to immediately stand down in the grand hall because love is absolutely not proof. She coldly concludes that true love is actually a painful sacrifice, firmly bringing her directly back to the bloody present. Right then, Mary swiftly turns her sharp blade completely away from Hanjo and violently swings it directly at Kaki instead. Kaki looks absolutely terrified, wildly screaming at the queen and angrily asking if she is completely insane right now. The human prosecutor calmly admits to himself that he was absolutely never someone who could win battles by sheer physical force. Elsewhere, the mustache demon Runaway smoothly notes that thanks to the dear prosecutor, the old man gets to keep breathing. The heavily bandaged zombies instantly start moving rapidly across the dark hospital ward as Hanjo fiercely glares at the incoming threats. Hanjo heavily realizes he absolutely does not stand a chance with his currently depleted physical strength in this violent state. The human prosecutor aggressively swings his glowing red whip, violently shattering the dark magical bindings, completely trapping the bloody queen. Mary looks deeply surprised as she is forcefully freed from the powerful restraints by the heavily injured human prosecutor. Hanjo smoothly looks at the powerful queen, firmly declaring that the two of them are officially even right now. He confidently extends his bloody hand directly toward her, strictly suggesting they must violently take Kaki out first together. Mary warmly smiles, confidently accepting the prosecutor's hand and firmly agreeing to the highly dangerous team-up against the tiny enemy. Meanwhile, Maria violently shivers in her bed as terrifying dark veins rapidly spread completely across her face. Hanjo and Mary are caught by dark, shadowy tendrils directly in the bloody hospital ward. The bandaged woman Maria pants heavily as dark veins rapidly spread across her completely corrupted face. Phoenix calmly notes that the lesser Proxy's immense greed has strongly stirred her dark demonic instincts. Meanwhile, the mustache demon Ronoe bows deeply and formally thanks Bune for saving his pitiful Proxy. Bune touches Rono's head, smoothly stating this humiliation will entirely entertain him until his immortality ends. Ronoe firmly vows to never forget this deep humiliation for his own and his Proxy's honor. The tiny cult leader Kaki furiously plays his pink recorder, launching destructive magical musical energy waves. Kaki wildly screams that a mere little girl is disrespectfully ignoring the great Messiah's direct orders. Hanjo confidently smirks, strictly reminding the tiny monster that his magical power only works on the living. Hanjo correctly notes that the surrounding shadowy zombie enemies are all already dead on the bloody floor. Kaki heavily panics, completely shocked because he wrongly thought only noble demons could kill other sinners. Hanjo firmly decides he still desperately needs Mary's fighting strength and silently vows to repay her. Kaki crawls desperately toward Phoenix, loudly begging the revered healing demon to bless him with grace. The tiny cult leader frantically promises to completely devote his entire being to Phoenix in return. Mary rapidly charges forward with her sharp sword to violently kill the tiny begging cult leader. Shadowy tendrils violently grab Hanjo and Mary as Maria wildly smiles in the noble demon's arms. The robber Claude suddenly enters the ward, casually holding a dead girl directly by her hair. Claude states he cut the girl's arm completely off and heavily wonders if she teamed with Phoenix. He casually tosses the bleeding body of the serial killer Aileen Warnos onto the bloody floor. Leraj smoothly arrives with Barbados and the bound demon Astaroth, complaining that Claude picked random doors. Barbados happily notes they successfully killed one Proxy, while Leraj confidently boasts about having more friends. Claude looks directly at the heavily injured Hanjo and casually promises to see the unlucky boy later. Phoenix strictly looks down at the bleeding girl's body, coldly asking Leraj what this trash is. Leraj smiles smoothly, firmly reminding the noble healing demon about their previously agreed-upon secret deal. Phoenix loudly stating he specifically wanted the pure body of Benny Parker. Leraj mockingly calls Phoenix a romantic and firmly claims the dead girl is definitely pure enough. Phoenix violently throws the dead body away, strictly refusing to let his noble Proxy be completely tainted. He aggressively vows to resurrect his beloved partner directly into the pure body of Benny Parker instead. Claude violently stabs the dead girl directly through the chest with a massive sharp bone weapon. He calmly admits he deeply understands wanting to actively give the absolute best to a loved one. Leraj smoothly states that because Claude and Barbados read minds, their endless violent fight never settles. She confidently suggests forcefully stealing Astaroth's valuable prophecy power to quickly settle the intense Proxy battle. Claude aggressively approaches Tiny Kaki, casually claiming he truly hates dealing with completely useless small fry. Instead of attacking Kaki, Claude violently strikes at Hanjo, who smoothly blocks the highly deadly attack. Claude furiously swings his sharp bone weapon, angrily yelling at the human prosecutor to get out of his way. Hanjo efficiently blocks the heavy strike, strictly warning the angry robber not to get cocky during their intense battle. Claude violently counterattacks, successfully landing a deep slash and forcefully kicking prosecutor directly onto the bloody floor. Claude smoothly noting that Hanjo fights completely differently than their previous violent encounter outside the castle. Meanwhile, the bloody Queen Mary rapidly summons the starry demon Decarabia, aggressively commanding the massive beast to eat Claude alive. Decarabia's glowing hands rapidly reach for Claude, but dark purple tendrils suddenly shoot out and violently grab the starry demon. Phoenix calmly notes that a demon's soul is the absolute finest meal as his bandaged proxy Maria greedily eats it. Mary heavily collapses to the ground, completely shocked as she feels her own physical will rapidly draining away alongside Decarabia. Claude confidently readies his bow, happily declaring he will finish Hanjo now that the queen has lost her starry protector. Suddenly, the entire hospital ward freezes completely. Hanjo quickly wonders if someone stopped time. The demon reveals he is running his brain at full throttle, speaking directly into Hanjo's mind to create a half-second gap. Astaroth firmly states they will both die instantly when time resumes, pointing out that other proxies sacrificed precious things for power. He strictly notes Hanjo hasn't given up anything, firmly demanding the proud prosecutor completely surrender his beloved daughter Sayo now. Hanjo fiercely glares at the demon, entirely refusing the horrific demand despite his severely weakened and highly pathetic physical state. Astaroth smoothly offers a special deal, heavily suggesting Hanjo formally offer his precious wife instead to gain cold-blooded logic. The demon mocks Hanjo's supposed coldness, firmly reminding the human that five-fingered mortals are just mistakes who must desperately survive. Astaroth threatens to drop the power and die together, but Hanjo coldly replies he would rather die savoring the sharp pain. The demon smiles happily, fully admitting Hanjo's unpredictable actions are highly entertaining, and smoothly tells him to do as he pleases. A bright flashback shows Hanjo's smiling wife warmly hugging him and thanking him for being a truly good husband. Hanjo silently narrates that he never truly loved her, but he firmly knew she was a very good mother to Sayo. He heavily remembers doing everything he could for his family, but firmly admits he cannot see any other way out now. Remembering her bright smile at the park, Hanjo smoothly notes she would make the exact same difficult choice in his place. His severely injured hand violently crackles with immense magical energy as he fully prepares to make the ultimate dark sacrifice. Hanjo firmly activates the demonic contract, coldly declaring he will completely throw his wife away just to safely protect Sayo. Hanjo firmly declares he will offer his wife to gain the demon's powerful abilities. Bune happily agrees to take the human sacrifice and smoothly touches the prosecutor's face. The terrifying demon proudly tells Hanjo to deeply enjoy what he successfully offered up today. A brutal vision quickly shows a massive demonic jaw violently consuming the innocent human family. Suddenly, a massive blast of destructive red energy furiously erupts directly from the human prosecutor. The powerful demons closely watch the thick smoke clear after the massive magical explosion. Claude casually asks about Hanjo's strange new look, wondering if it is an awakening. Hanjo stands firmly on the bloody ground with stark white hair and a glowing horn. Elsewhere, the tiny cult leader Kaki furiously screams, completely confused about the sudden chaotic situation. The bloody Queen Mary sits heavily exhausted as Phoenix protectively holds his heavily bandaged proxy. Bune highly praises Hanjo, proudly stating this is expected of the man chosen by Solomon. He calmly accepts the offering, firmly noting the precious sacrifice is slightly underwhelming. Hanjo coldly turns his glowing red eyes toward Claude, smoothly asking if he wants death. Claude violently attacks with his sharp bone weapons. Hanjo effortlessly blocks the rapid strikes, strictly ordering the angry robber to just shut up. Hanjo violently catches Claude's incoming weapon, coldly stating he is currently thinking right now. The furious robber wildly yells, aggressively asking what the bastard could possibly be thinking about. Hanjo forcefully kicks Claude completely away, prompting the robber to angrily accuse him of cowardice. Hanjo smoothly realizes everything around him feels incredibly slow during the highly intense physical combat. The prosecutor correctly deduces he is now perfectly viewing reality through purely cold-blooded logic. He violently dashes forward and brutally slices Claude's entire body completely off with immense speed. The heavily injured robber's Proxy vomits bright red blood, heavily disgusted by the overwhelming physical pain. Hanjo unleashes massive red energy whips, violently obliterating Claude's upper torso into bloody pieces instantly. Claude's completely destroyed body rapidly regenerates back together on the cold, highly bloody hospital floor. Hanjo confidently smirks, firmly remembering the angry robber previously received Phoenix's supreme healing powers. He coldly states that Claude dying too easily would be a complete waste of his wife. Elsewhere, Kaki's severed head furiously yells at Astaroth, wildly complaining the prophecies were completely fake. The tiny cult leader angrily blames the blindfolded demon for completely ruining his perfect survival plan. Astaroth completely ignores the screaming cult leader and violently crushes Kaki's tiny severed head entirely. Bune maniacally laughs, wildly declaring this chaotic festival is a party of pure thrills. Claude completely regenerates but pants heavily, looking absolutely terrified of the incredibly powerful human prosecutor. Claude heavily mocks Hanjo, strictly noting his current pathetic state despite sacrificing everything for power. Hanjo smoothly blames Claude's terrible weakness on his highly childish demon master hiding directly behind him. Claude completely panics, desperately screaming at Larage to violently fight for her own immortal life. Hanjo strictly asks if the terrified robber is done, violently preparing to end the brutal fight completely.